This winter, there's only one soap that's going to warm women up. Tactical Soap, all natural pheromone-infused soap for men, proud channel sponsor of 21 Studios. I'm Anthony Dream Johnson, and I approve this soap. Order now at the link below. Use coupon code 21C for 10% off now.
George Bruno with the 21 Report in Orlando, Florida, talking with Caleb Jones, also known as Blackdragon from blackdragonblog.com. What is your experience so far with the 21 convention?
It's fantastic. You guys are in a really tight ship. I've been to a lot of conventions over the course of my business career, and I can tell when things are well run and when things aren't, and this is a very well run operation. I was very impressed.
Yeah, we have people whisking people from place to place. And
not all conventions do that.
Yeah.
You can have a lot of organization, because I've been to a lot, and not all of them do this. It's great. I was very impressed.
We have guys at every door.
I noticed that.
And people are being helped left and right.
Mm-hmm.
Speakers are being whisked from stage to studio to, so we're pretty excited about that. That's pretty cool.
It's great.
What did you speak about today?
Long-term consistent happiness for a man.
Mm-hmm.
And thinking in terms long-term, thinking strategically, thinking in terms of systems in your woman life and in your business life, both, because they both benefit from systems instead of just doing whatever you feel like.
Instead of winging it.
Right. Instead of doing what makes you happy this month and then next month you're unhappy.
So what is the benefit of a system?
If you have a system in place, you don't have to work as hard. So if you don't have a system, you have to keep working over and over and over again to produce a result. So if you've got a system in place that is something that is automatic for you or operates independently of you,
yes,
then in business, you can back off on your work hours and still maintain a high income. And in your woman life, you can maintain a high level of results without having to work so hard and be out all the time trying to meet new women and so on and so on. It makes everything in your life better. The problem is you have to spend a little time building that system first. But that's an investment.
Yeah.
Once you got the systems done, then you're done. And you can sit back and relax, more or less,
yeah,
for the rest of your life because your systems are in place.
Would this be, you hear a lot of people talking about making money while you sleep.
Mm-hmm.
Would this fit into the category of income coming in when you're not actually hammering a nail, when you're not typing something?
So it's interesting you say that. I wake up every morning, and one of the first things I do is I check my phone to see how much money I made that night while I was sleeping. So the answer is yes.
That's a beautiful thing.
It's a beautiful thing. Now, that doesn't mean that everything is residual. For example, one of my companies, I sell ebooks. And so sometimes guys will say, oh, you write ebooks, so it's residual income, right? Partially. I have to be present on my blogs. I have to return email. There's some level of work I have to do to maintain that income, but instead of this much work on this much income, it's this much work on this much income.
Right.
So there's percentages of, depending on the business, depending on the investment, of what percentage that residual income is. It could be 100%, it could be 80%, it could be 5%, depending what you're doing.
I would venture to say that many of our viewers, and this is not an insult to our viewers, but many people trade time for money.
Most people.
Yeah.
That's the norm. And that won't make you happy long-term as a man, not long-term.
How does a man go from trading time for money to systematizing his income?
Two things. First, you have to sit down and you have to decide what kind of system you want. And sometimes that's the hardest part. Sometimes that is the hardest part. What do I want? What will make me happy in the long term? You got to think strategically. Then, in addition to every day making that money to pay your bills, you take another few hours, and you might only need a half an hour. It might only be an hour, depending on the day, to build that system. So if you work at a full-time job, let's say, and you want to start a business on the side, it's really common. You don't need to work another 40 hours a week in addition to your 40. Maybe you put in 10 hours a week. Maybe I talk about a minimum of 15 hours a week.
Yeah.
15 hours a week. So that might be 2 hours on Monday, 2 hours on Wednesday, and a bunch of time on Saturday, and you take Sunday off. You add a little extra time to build the system. Then when you get to the point where the system is making near enough to where you're making money at your job, you can quit your job, optimize the system, and then you're done in terms of you're done building the system.
So many guys are used to taking second jobs or the concept of a side hustle.
The gig economy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Why is that? I know that's not a really great thing long term. Why is that not a great thing? I want to hear you explain that.
It's just more work. It's just more trading hours for dollars. So is your goal in life to work 80 hours a week for the rest of your life? Probably not. You're not thinking strategically. You're fighting fires. You're thinking short term. You're thinking, I need more money to pay my electric bill. I better get another job. Now that's fine, and I've had times in my life, maybe you have too, where you've had some financial difficulties and you had to work a little extra to put food on the table. That's fine, I understand that. But in terms of the long term, you don't want to just keep adding more jobs and more businesses that aren't systems. You have to eventually stop when you get the time and put in, again, it could be an hour a day to build that system so that there's an end to all this. Otherwise, there isn't going to be an end. I know a lot of people, maybe you do too, who are in their 50s, 60s, 70s, who still work because they have to.
They have to. Yeah.
They have to because they never built any systems.
Yeah.
You don't want to end up like that.
Yeah.
Being successful, I've talked this before, being successful and happy in your 20s and 30s, and then being miserable in your 60s or 70s is not success.
Right.
What's the point? What are you doing?
Right. What about content? The average Joe sitting out there right now might not have access to content. He might not have the intellect for content. There might be people who don't even know what content is. And, a lot of guys just are living day to day. Tell me about the role of content in a systematized way of living.
So first of all, to your first point, you don't have to be Superman. We live in an era, an Instagram era, where guys think if I don't have six-pack abs, if I don't make $1 million a year, if I'm not banging supermodels, then I'm not successful. You don't have to be Superman. I talked about $75,000 a year or around that. That's all you need to make. You can have a cute girlfriend and maybe one girl on the side who is also cute, and that's it. You don't have to set these gigantic goals for yourselves. A lot of times guys will think, well, geez, there's no way I could do that. I'm just a normal guy. So that's the first thing. Second thing, in terms of content, I've gotten that question before. Well, I don't have any marketable skills. First of all, I don't believe that. I think that if I pulled you aside and took a clipboard and interviewed you for 2 hours straight, I would be able to find 1 or 2, maybe 3 or 4 marketable skills you'd be able to make money from. That's the first thing. Even if you don't believe that, there are ways to build a business without these kinds of content skills. You can build a product-based business. Tim Ferriss was all over that stuff. You can sell products.
4-hour work week.
Fine, right, which is not necessarily true, but close enough. Close enough. I have a 15-hour
catchy title.
Catchy, yeah, very good marketing. Fantastic marketing. He split test that and everything. It was great. You can sell products. You can sell services, you can sell information. So when guys say I have no marketable skills, they're kind of focused on information and maybe a little bit of services. You can do services that don't require a marketable skill, and you can sell products. And again, that assumes you have no marketable skill, and I don't believe you, I bet you do.
The internet is overrun, especially YouTube, with the ads in the beginning of any video that you watch, and it's usually what I call the Lamborghini boys.
Yeah.
And we know nothing about these young guys, but there's always a Lamborghini in the background.
Yeah,
and
I know those guys, yeah.
Yeah. Tell me about, and of course they're they got the sunglasses, the Hawaiian shirt on, that kind of thing. Yeah. You even see some laying in piles of cash.
Yeah, why not?
Exactly. And the average guy looks at that
and says, hell no, I could never get there.
Right.
Right, that's the problem.
Right.
So I talk about how Grant Cardone and these kind of guys, you got to make $1 million a year, man. You don't. Most guys do not need to make bazillion dollars a year or date all these hot chicks in order to be happy. It starts with your happiness. If you sat down and wrote out your perfect life, it is very unlikely. I mean, maybe it's possible, but it's unlikely you would have these gigantic numbers and private jets and limousines. You wouldn't have that stuff. You'd I have quality relationships, I make plenty of money, I have a stable life, I can travel, I can do what I want, I have a decent amount of sex, I'm physically fit and healthy. It's basic stuff. It's not this so that's the problem. You're exactly right. You hit it. That's why we get overworked with what we think we have to accomplish. We don't. Unless you really want to, but if you really, really want to, you're probably not that guy in the couch anyway, you're probably already working. But if you're just a guy, you don't have to be Superman. You really don't.
There are buzzwords and buzz phrases that we've heard in the past 5 to 10 years. We talked about making money while you sleep.
Yeah.
I will shoot another one at you. Residual income, passive income.
Yeah.
Speak about those.
So same deal. You have some businesses that are residual, that are near 100%. You've got some businesses that aren't residual at all. So, for example, I'll give you my example. One of my companies is I'm a business consultant. So it's the advantage of being a consultant is that it's a very high-paying skill and position. I can make a lot of money very quickly. The downside of it is it's not residual at all. I have to go perform the work or I don't get paid. So it's 0 to 5% residual income. Another business, the Blackdragon business, sells ebooks and things like that. That's a little different because that's about maybe 70 or 80% residual. The reason for that is if I stopped working, would the income go to 0? No. It would continue along for a while. Now, eventually it would start dropping down over time. It might take 2 or 3 years. So it's partially residual, maybe 70% residual. If you buy a house and rent it out and it's paid off and you hire a management company, that would be 95% residual. So it's percentages. So yes, you can build companies and build systems that are mostly residual. That's entirely possible. Maybe not 100%. You can, it's hard, but at least you can get to 70, 80, 90%. Again, achievable goals.
Here's another phrase. Be your own boss.
Yes, period. In my opinion, every man who is interested in this content, so every man at this convention, every man watching this, should be your own boss, even if it's a side business that you are starting and you have a business or a job full time. Yes, it's a requirement. Now, people say, well, not everyone can be an entrepreneur. Anyone interested in this content can do this. If you weren't interested in this content, then maybe you'd be in a different category, but you're watching this video. So yes, be your own boss is a requirement. Again, as a man, you're not going to be long-term happy unless you're your own boss.
Is systematizing a business the same as automation?
Very similar. They're almost the same. Automation is a little more specific in terms of delivery systems, marketing systems, and things like that. So automation is a component of building a system, but a system is all-inclusive. When you look at your business top-down, that whole thing is a system. Then you have automation within the system.
Speak to the guy who the closest thing to a computer that he has is his phone.
Yeah.
A lot of what I would call just plain everyday people, many of them watching this, might say, I'm not a computer expert. I don't know anything about computers. Talk to that guy.
2 things. First of all, I'll repeat it again, achievable goals. You don't have to be a computer genius. Second of all, yeah, we live in the 21st century. You've got to be literate to a point. You have to be literate to a point in terms of computer technology, smartphone technology. You don't have to be a computer nerd. You don't have to be an IT guy. You don't have to be anywhere near that. As a matter of fact, a lot of business owners get tied up in the technical side. When they should be marketing their companies, they're screwing around with their websites when they really shouldn't be. They should be outsourcing that stuff. That's the second thing. Third thing is you can outsource tech work. My background is a computer consultant. That's where I got started. So I'm a nerd. So I could, if I wanted to, set up my own websites, set up my own databases and all that good stuff. I don't do that. I outsource it. I pay someone else to do that because they'll do it better and faster. And doing that kind of tech work in my business is not a high ROI activity. That's a low, I need to be out marketing and scaling my business. So number 1, don't worry about it. Number 2, yeah, you got to be literate to a degree. And number 3, you can outsource stuff, especially when you start making a little money.
I like that. I like that. So you think the average person can improve their life by creating something and participating in something that's systematized, automated, and offering some kind of content or a physical item? What do you think?
Either one.
Okay.
Either one. So there's 3 categories. There's products, services, and information. Each one has their own pros and cons. And you are one of those 3 in terms of your personality. So some guys are product guys, some guys are services guys, some guys are information guys. I tend to be an information guy and a little bit of a service guy. I'm not a product guy. I'm not very good at it. Now, there are guys who are hardcore product guys who do very well. They don't work very hard. They make a lot of money, location-independent income, digital nomads, and they're great. So you have to look in and think through, ideally on paper, write this out as you're writing out your ideal business. Are you more of a product guy, a services guy, or an information guy? And as I said that, you're probably already thinking, well, I'm probably that. You probably already have an inkling. And that's what you lean into, because you can, any one of those three things work. A lot of guys are like, only information is good. Well, information is great. I make a lot of money with information. Products are good too. Services are good too, as long as you're careful and you utilize systems. So you start with, what is your personality? Where do you lean towards? And you lean into that.
Okay.
I would never be a product guy. I would never start a hardcore products business. I'm not that kind of guy. I don't think that way. Not the way I'm wired.
I have heard people that have products. If I created something,
Yeah.
and this is my genius invention, that I end up just being in the shipping and handling business more than the widget business, the invention business, and you end up literally just making trips to UPS or the post office
Yes.
just every day.
You can.
Okay. As far as information products are concerned, they're deliverable anywhere, anytime,
That's why I prefer information.
and they have a
I agree.
high perceived value. I've noticed ebooks being sold for $2.97,
Oh, yeah.
but I've never seen a paper and ink book be sold for $2.97.
Correct. Especially when it comes to information. That's correct. And information products have high margin. You have a margin on that.
Yeah,
Whereas you sell an ebook, your margin is the credit card fee, and that's it. The rest goes in your pocket in
I
terms
see.
of gross profit. So that's another advantage of information products. The downside of information is what you mentioned earlier. You have to write it or create it or pay someone to do so. So there is a longer ramp-up time for the information stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You have to develop the information or pay someone to develop it, and then you market it. Whereas a product, you'd start it immediately. So there's pros and cons to all these things.
Would you say a tradesman is a services provider?
That's a service.
Okay.
Right.
What if someone's a tradesman and they want to get into this? Because a lot of, the trades pay okay, but they wear you out. You come home and you're dead at the end of the day.
Yeah.
This guy doesn't want to work till he's 60 years old doing whatever his trade is. What advice would you have for him?
Start with what you know. So if you're a tradesman and you're an auto mechanic and you're really good on Nissans or whatever, start with that and branch out into, again, product, service, or information from that. So what I would do just off the top of my head, if you were a tradesman, is I would sit down and determine a niche who would be interested in an aspect of my trade and start doing information products or how-to videos for that niche. And I would start there because that's the easiest place to start is what you know.
Yeah.
The first business I started was computer consulting because I was a nerd and I knew computers. Don't learn something brand new for your first business. For your second, third business down the road, then you can experiment a little more. But for your first business, especially if you're a newbie in entrepreneurship, start with what you know and use the correct systems for what you know.
What just jumped out at me, and I'm going to pass it on to the guy sitting on the couch, start with what you know.
Yes.
Because I know the first thing that you're going to say is, well, I don't know how to do anything.
Right. And A, you do, and B, you don't have to, depending on what you do, depending on the model that you follow. And C, as I said, a lot of that, I don't know how to do anything, starts from looking at these guys with the six-pack abs, the $1 million, the private jets, and the models.
The Lamborghini boys.
A lot of that stuff is the result of, well, I don't know how to do anything. Yeah, you do. Yes, you do. You don't have to make $1 million next year. You know something. And again, I've said this before and I'll say it again. If I were to grab you and sit you down and drill you drill sergeant style with an interview of everything you knew in your past and your history, I would be able to pull out at least 2 marketable skills that I could pull from you. There's no such thing as a guy that knows nothing. There's no such thing. I don't believe it.
So if somebody wants to find out more information about changing their life like this, because it does sound like it's life-changing, how would they reach you?
I have a lot of websites, but blackdragonblog.com is probably the easiest one to start with.
And what will a man get or a woman get by going to blackdragonblog.com?
So Black Dragon Blog, I also have calebjonesblog.com, but Black Dragon Blog starts with dating and relationships on your terms as a free man to navigate the world of women in a way that makes you long-term happy instead of what your mom wants or what your friends wants or what society wants, something that'll make you happy. And then from there, I also branch into business topics and other things on other blogs, but you can start there and that's the easiest place to start.
That sounds fascinating. We're talking to Caleb Jones, blackdragonblog.com. This is George Bruno for the 21 Report. Thank you, Caleb.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.